Hey, in 2024, last year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said there was 20.2 million Americans who lost their job. They were either laid off or discharged from their current employment. If that's you, today is for you. We're gonna talk about what to do both before and after something like that happens. And I wanna come to you from a financial advisor's perspective to talk to you about your accounts, specifically your 401k accounts, your IRA accounts, and how to use them in a situation like this. Today on Mindset with Brad Barrett. Let's go. Welcome into Mindset. I am Brad Barrett. This is producer Jared and the lovely Kira. Welcome back to our show. We talk about all things finances, but most of the things we talk about here has to do with our headspace, our mindset. And today's show is actually, believe it or not, came from a client scenario I was dealing with a client who actually lost their job recently. And this was a scenario where it came out of nowhere. At the same time, we also actually got a voicemail through one of our social media channels, which we'll play here for you in a second, on the same topic. So we figured we'd come here today and talk to you about what it is to lose your job.
You are terminated!
Terminated? No, I cannot be fired. I'm fired.
And as a financial advisor, what would I advise doing for that? So we're gonna talk about it today. Before we get started, as always, we're gonna kick over to some of the comments. We've been getting a lot of them, so thank you all. And I think Kira's got some loaded up for us.
The comments section.
What say you?
Okay. This first one comes from Navigating the Emotional Roller Coaster of Wealth and Loss.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody said, count your blessings, but at the same time, make sure your blessings are accounted for. It's important to share when God has blessed us, but he also wants us to be wise in our investments.
I like
that was
that.
so great.
I like comments that are like, I don't need comments for positivity for me per se, but just positive in the world.
In general, put some good stuff out there. I like that.
I'm not sure it entirely pertains to that episode, but I love it and I'll take it.
Take that all day long.
And you know what? I do talk about that a lot for stewardship because that is a biblical principle. We talk about it all the time. A lot of people think money and God, and there's this whole 1 Timothy 6:10 of money is bad and it's the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money. We have to remember that, right? But he does call us, if you're blessed with anything, and that's the other thing too, careful of what, the whole looking over the fence thing and comparisons, the thief of joy. If you've been blessed, you woke up this morning, you got breath in your lungs, you have a job, we'll talk about it. Even if you don't have a job, okay, there's still things to count your blessings for. So I like that one.
Amen.
Amazing.
Amen.
And then the next one, your dad, you'll like this.
Oh God.
I bought shares in a clown makeup company. Aren't you glad you invested?
Oh, he had me.
It was
I was
great.
like, what?
But bum.
But
Orange, you glad?
Yeah.
Glad I didn't say banana.
I saw that one actually. I think I'm a huge sucker for dad jokes.
You did say love a good dad joke.
Love a good dad. I did. I
Love
thought
that. Bringing them on.
Bring it on, baby. All for that. I know he was throwing a punt at President Trump on that one. I'm assuming.
I think, yeah.
Has to be, right?
Yeah.
The orange man. I'm
Right.
assuming.
Still dig it.
Anyways.
I like it.
I laughed out loud, so.
I mean, did you lol?
LOL.
I did lol.
I lolled.
Lol.
Let's play that voicemail. I think for context, actually, everybody, it was a great voicemail that came in. So if you guys have any questions and want us to answer them, we're more than happy to.
Fun fact. I learned today that you can have a voicemail message on Instagram.
Fun fact 2.0, I learned this morning, in fact, from you, that you learned today, that Kira apparently knew this whole time.
Yeah.
You guys.
You guys are
talk
smarter
about-
than we are out here. That's good.
You guys always talk about how you hate voice memos, so,
I do hate voice memos.
It's like choose a call. Call somebody or text somebody.
Call or text.
But
Don't be gray. That's why I hate the color gray. Are you black or are you white?
under a minute, I feel like that's my rule of thumb. It has to be less than a minute and 30.
Yeah, when you get like a
You know what
voice
I mean?
text that's like 3 minutes long, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, wait, where's this going?
Because I also don't want a paragraph sent to me,
For sure.
I get that.
Like, at least I can listen to this while I'm doing something.
Anyways, roll the tape on that voicemail.
Roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
Hi, Brad. I have a quick question today regarding my 401k account. I unfortunately was just laid off from my job, and I have some money in my current 401k account, and I believe that I can either leave it with my current company through my past employer, the administrator for that 401k account, or I can move it over into a rollover account. Is that correct? And what do you think, what's your best advice for what I should do with that 401k money? Thanks.
It's a good question.
That's a good question. So before I answer that voicemail, I just want to say something right out of the gate. You're not alone. And I think it's really important for you to hear that. And I appreciate you reaching out to us and going through that. And we pulled some stats. It's interesting because we're sitting here in 2025, but as of the end of last year, 20.2 million people were laid off in 2024, which is 1.68 million layoffs per month in all of last year. So if those of you who have recently lost your job, you're not alone.
Yeah, and we'll say laid off or discharged, which was their nice way of saying
I know.
crap canned.
So crap can, I haven't heard that one before. Friends, this happens. Have you ever been let go before?
Yeah, how many times?
Oh my goodness.
I want to say 4 to 5.
What did you do?
Firing or like let
Yeah.
go?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
No
so,
shame.
So technically, like, and a couple of these were
No
like,
shame.
like high school jobs. You know,
yeah.
I had a job at a clothing store at the mall in high school, and I may or may not have been taking naps behind the register.
You're fired.
So like
Don't bother.
high school behavior, like in my adult life, really just once that we had a really philosophical disagreement,
Yeah.
and it kind of,
Came to a head where they're the employer, you're the employee, and it was just time to separate.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was you're fired, I quit. It just didn't work out.
At least it was mutual.
Yes, mutual on both sides.
I get that.
And even if it's your kind of choice,
Yeah.
none feels good because you typically go from one day having a job to whatever the circumstances is the next day you don't,
Yeah.
and you have no money coming in.
And we should talk about that, because if you did click on this show and you, this is new and fresh cut, like all wounds, I'm here to say, if you don't have someone else in your life talking about this, like, it does heal. Like, go through the mourning process. It does hurt for whatever the reason is. And I'm not going to sit here and go through the plethora of different reasons as to why or who. Or remember, there's always 3 sides to the story, right? Yours, theirs, and the truth. So it's like, look, I get it. It's not fun. Don't get me wrong. You will survive. You will get through this. This shall pass, as they say. But there are some things to make sure that during this time period, we don't overreact.
Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do. Flip out, man.
We here at Mindset talk about emotions all the time. And a lot of times the frontal lobe, our emotions kick in during anger, stress, fear, right? Anxiety. Even if you're going into depression kind of stuff and it's like really dark. I mean, we tend to react in certain ways. And when it comes to our money, we have to be really, really careful. So yes, why is a financial advisor talking about this kind of stuff? Because I see a lot of the mistakes happen both at the highest highs that we talked about recently and the lowest lows. And we're now kind of today talking about this might be a low for somebody. You ever been let go, Kira? This is fun for me because I get to get into the juice of the people here.
I haven't been let go or fired, but I was working at a place and they got bought out by a con artist, and I wasn't paid for 4 months, like leading right up to my wedding. And I was like, oh no, we're a month away and I'm like cut off after my wedding. You know what I mean? Like my mom's not going to pay my rent.
Right.
And yeah, so they just were like, doors are closed unless you want to work for free. Don't come back.
So you haven't been fired per se, but that probably I would say that's like a slow burn, like a death by 1,000 cuts versus just saying, hey, sorry, we're moving on.
It's like a
Bye.
slow layoff. Of
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Oh, crap.
Almost feel like
It
that's
was-
almost,
Yeah, it was a very strange situation.
it's gotta be. Now, I might be hitting someone right now where it's like, this guy is a joke. I just got let go. It was a vicious situation. I am broke. What do I do? So we're gonna talk about that here. But also I want to share this with you.
I might let you off. Have you been fired?
No. I've been my own boss for my entire career for the most part. But as an advisor, I have worked through countless scenarios, plans with clients and sat with them kneecap to kneecap and saw the pain. And I think for you know my story as well, I got into this business by being a financial owner because my dad was let go when his company went bankrupt. It's rough, man. Okay, here's the thing. If you got let go, there's a couple things I want you to know about that if we were sitting together, a couple things, and again, I'm gonna try to boil this down to real simple terms. The main thing I want to talk about today is what you would do with certain accounts. But before we get into that, you really have to understand, and if you have an advisor, work with them on this, or if you don't, reach out to somebody because they can help you. And hopefully this video helps a little bit as well. Is you want to really understand where you are in your life, okay? Because if you have the ability and you're in your 20s to call mom and dad if they're open to it and say, hey, look, this happened. Can I move back in for 6 months to a year while I recoup? I always say if that's cool with them and it works, do it. I get the whole like, well, I don't want, like, look, I understand. I'm giving you all the options. I'm not saying you have to do them, but there's that time period makes some sense. To be candid with you, I have had clients in their 40s with kids who have moved back in with their parents after being let go. I dealt with a lot of this in 08, 09, and 10. So there was a lot going on in that time period from different sectors of the market. You're not alone if that's something you're considering. And also, I would also look at that as a blessing. If you got parents who are that loving and open to that, dude, that's cool. I don't care who you are, that's cool. But
sure, as long as it's not taken advantage of.
Yeah, as long as you're taking advantage of it, it's cool. But I think start there understanding your living situation matters. If you got let go or laid off, what your severance package is. You got to work with that because a lot of times, depending on where you came from, there's going to be severance packages. There's also unemployment you can apply for as well. So there's things you can check off prior to getting to any accounts. So long-winded to say this, your accounts that you have saved should be the second and third base, not the first base. The first base should really be their severance package if you got one and states unemployment.
So direct needs right now, immediate stuff. Deal with that.
Deal with that first right away.
It's a good tip.
It's a good tip. And again, so that's kind of first base. And I'm going fast through that because I'm not going to go down into any crazy tunnels and those kind of things. It's a different show, different conversation. Call us, call an advisor, work through that. But severance packages, unemployment rates. As you move in my baseball dumb analogy here, as you're moving from first base to second base, this is where you start talking about cash and understanding your living situation. Do you rent? Do you own? Can you afford mortgage or rent payments for how long? How long can you support food and just your general living expenses till severance ends or unemployment ends potentially, right? By the way, this is all while assuming you're potentially looking for new work, because this should also be happening in the background as well. Wouldn't you agree?
No, absolutely. I was just,
you were looking at me like I was like,
no. I fully agree.
Okay.
When you said that, it was like running through my head of like, I mean, that's why they say like after this, it's a full-time job to get back up on your feet, because you start doing the checklists. It's immediate needs. It's looking at your situation. It's looking for another job. Like there's a lot you have to do.
Yeah, and I think at that time period too, if you can, and I know I'm probably speaking to somebody who it's literally like the definition of changing the pipes while the water's running. You know, they're like, Brad, how is this possible? Look, a lot of things in life. Here's the thing. If you're probably in your 40s or beyond, and this is something you clicked on because it happened to you, I would bet you'd lived enough life to know that if you're alive today, clicking and watching this link and you're healthy, that you've gotten through a lot of the things in your life you thought you wouldn't. So if you're thinking about this, like, how am I going to get through this? Please refer back to page 1 in your own book, because there's probably things in your life you can look at. Kira can't now say this yet, maybe. I feel like I'm picking on Kira. That was a bull.
I love it.
That was like kind of a stray, but it's fine.
That's kind of like, oh, that was heated. Instead of looking at it like complete devastation, which I know it can be, it's a great point to look at it like, okay, is this what I want to be doing really? Now that I have this clean slate, right? So, but that being said, so we've talked about the first thing you should be doing, whatever age you are. Unemployment's an option for a little while. If you're, it's there to serve as an interim while you're looking for work, right? Severance package might be the case. Now you start getting into, your savings, your 3 to 6 months of emerging funds. This is why it's there. That is when you get into what I consider for today's topic from just one aspect of break glass in case of emergency. That's where you start looking at retirement plans, because yes, retirement plans are for your tomorrow self, and I get that, but if your today self can't get to tomorrow, you got to use it. Okay?
Yeah, but it is important, because we know compound interest. We don't want to lose the time. So don't put it off. It might be like, okay, that's tomorrow, but get to it pretty quick.
True.
You're losing time.
And I want to give you a live scenario, because this show, actually, we wrote this show and wanted to have this conversation simply because it actually happened with a client of ours. And at the same time, what was happening was this client had 2 properties. Okay. One was the place where they lived, and one was the place that their first home that they ended up renting out. This is a very common thing. And they weren't, they were both valued together about $1 million. This isn't a high net worth individual by any means. Okay. Together they made about $180,000 a year, maybe about $200 between the two of them. So they lost about $100,000 of income. Okay. Sizable. They have 2 mortgages, things going on. They have good equity in the houses. So the conversation that were coming to me with is, hey, we want to sell one of the properties. I said, okay, that's great. It might take you a month or 2 or 3 to sell this property because they want to get a certain price for it. What are you going to do in the interim? Oh, we hadn't thought about that. I said, well, we got bills to pay between now and then, right? I said, they didn't have a 3 to 6 months set aside, even though I advised them to. They didn't. I mentioned the 401k plan of her previous employer. And he goes, I hadn't even thought about that. I said, look, you got to crack into that, because you're not going to make it past 2 months. Your saving grace is if you sell one of the properties, then you can, right? But I wouldn't bank on that happening within 60 days. It could, So wait 30 days, wait a couple weeks till you list the house. We were going through all this kind of stuff. So this is how this all came up. This is why the 401k balance came up. And yes, I described to him, look, yes, out there, for those of you who are going to nitpick me on all these kind of things, yes, I'm well aware that you're going to be paying taxes on it. And I'm well aware if you're under the age of 59 and a half, you're going to be penalized. Yes, I'm aware. But is that worse than going default on rent or mortgages or not being able to feed your kid? I mean, like, you know what I mean?
No, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
If one was a rental property, did you look at the income coming in to help?
The rental income was paying for the mortgage on it.
Oh, just paying for the mortgage on that house.
So they had equity in it, but it wasn't providing cash flow.
Gotcha.
And I think, by the way, it's a good question because I think in real estate, people think, oh, if I have, like, I tell people all the time, the reason why we use these words in financial planning of liquidity and illiquidity is for this reason. Because assets are assets, right? You can own a $1 million real estate portfolio and a $1 million stock portfolio, right?
Yeah.
One you can access, one you can't. The only access you have on the real estate is the rental income you bring in. That's why they consider it called a cap rate in real estate, right? But you can't just go knock on that door of that property and say, hey, I need grocery money today.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So that's why I think any good financial advisor, that's what we do here at One Capital, we'll split the assets into what's liquid and what's illiquid to make sure that we walk through with them. When we talk about distribution planning and retirement and just those kind of things, we're talking about the liquid assets. Don't get me wrong, we're not aware or don't want to know about the real estate assets. We just know that those are more for investing for long-term and maybe rental income. And this is a good conversation with the clients. I told them, as I said, and I think a lot of people out there think, oh, I have assets, I can just sell them. Well, yeah, but not right away.
Take some time.
This just happened about a month and a half ago. For any of you out there that know, let me just tell you, I've worked with a lot of clients over this past probably 9 months. It's not a great real estate market right now.
Yeah.
It's not the buying frenzy or the selling frenzy like it was 2 years ago. High interest rates, things aren't moving as fast. Pricing still hasn't come down, so you're still getting high prices. So it's like this, we're in this interim period, so this is like a bad time.
Even on top of that, you figure if you do sell, it's got an escrow period. If it falls out and you have to go through another one, like it could be, even on a good scenario, a couple months.
Well, that's what I said. You got to understand that, yes, your 401k and your assets should be a part of this conversation. Should it be first? No. But it should be a part of it. So to that voicemail, they just got to let go. Back to that. I want to answer that in the best way I know how to not make this a 30-minute dissertation.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, I don't want to bore anybody. You technically do have 3 options with a 401k or a retirement plan if you were to get fired. One is, as the voicemail stated, you can roll it over to an IRA. That is a fact. The other option is you can cash it out. That would be in the scenario where you don't have the emergency funds and you do need, to use the money. You should know if you're under the age of 59 and a half, that will typically come with, it'll be a taxable event as well as potentially an early withdrawal. There is something called a hardship that you can talk to your CPA about that maybe you can qualify for that. That would get rid of the penalty side of it, but that is another factor. The third option is, let's say you got let go, but you found another employer. You can roll that old 401k into the new 401k. Now, technically, there's a fourth option that I'll bring up, and I'm just going to say it. You can, if you get let go or laid off or fired or terminated or whatever, you can leave your 401k at that employer. I come across a lot of clients who are in their 60s, who have had 1 or 2 or 3 401k accounts from previous employers from like their 20s. You can do that. I don't recommend it for a couple reasons. One, most of the times they forget about them, or it's harder work for them to go find them and consolidate them all now that they're retiring. There's another scenario I've come across before as well, where it's like someone passed away and now their heirs have to go and do the digging for them. And years go by, it's like, oh, by the way, mom and dad had this old 401k from 40 years ago, had no idea about it. So you're kind of collectively along the way also providing for your estate in some aspects. So I don't typically bring that up as an option I'd recommend, but theoretically it is an option. So I wanted to mention it.
Would it still be growing if you keep it with another company?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could still manage it. It can still be in the investments at the administrator. The difference in the back end, it would be you'd be marked as terminated employee, not active. That's the only difference, right? But you could, but again, you're paying the administration costs and all the costs associated with that plan, even though you're not employed by them. So again, it's not something I recommend. It happens a lot, mostly due to lack of education. Like people don't know these options. Yeah. So share this video with them, okay?
And I have a question. I don't know if this is like relevant to this topic or another one, but what happens when you have a 401k, you leave it in an old company, you move on, and that company shuts down?
You'll probably typically get it's a good question. You would typically, first off, you find out about it, you can still call the administrator. The administrator is not a part of the company. You know these companies like Fidelity's a big, large one, Great West's a big one, Voya's a big one. There's a lot of big administrators out there. So it's a separate entity, number one. So if the company folds or something happens to the company, they still have the record keeping and administration work. So that shouldn't change. Which again is also the point though, if they change administrators and you thought it was 40 years ago, happens all the time. Like it's just not worth it.
Right.
Deal with it now, figure out if you need it. If you don't, roll it over. That's where an advisor comes in to help you with it too.
Awesome. Love that. And I hope our caller learns, uses this information, and stays on track for their wealth building journey.
Correct. Because yes, a layoff, a termination, a firing can absolutely affect you. And I'm not downplaying that at all. It can wreak havoc on retirement plans. It can wreak havoc on investing and your just wealth building process. So these ideas I brought up today are really to help you, not just from the numerical side of things, but also the character side of things, the you, because remember, you're the one building the process, building the investments. You're the one retiring or currently active. So you're involved in this. So yeah, understanding your mental awareness through all this is huge. So I hope you enjoyed that today. We had some fun. I know it's kind of a traumatic topic and be a little bit of a tougher one, but we're not going to shy away from those kind of concepts here. We want to talk to you about it. Thank you to the person who left that voicemail. I hope that helps. And if you all have any questions for us, let us know. We're happy to answer them.
We want more. We want to start doing this more.
We do.
So send us your comments.
Friends, if you don't know this already, I do this every day for a living and I love working with my clients. This is a fun outlet to reach many people out there who I know we have pain points. So I'm happy to help if I can. So thank you and all the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do so. We post new videos every week. We're excited to bring those to you. And next week, we're talking about
the questions your financial advisor should be asking you.
Whoa, the tables have turned.
Tables have turned.
You're in control.
Being a financial advisor, I got a lot to say about that one.
Not you.
I know. I'm looking forward to that one. Hey, thank you, everybody. And as always, if you lead with love, everything's going to be all right. See you guys.